bring someone on who is a brilliant journalist, as I was telling you before, award-winning journalist. And the thing about Steve is he's covering something that really on its face strikes me as bizarre and unusual. Put it together for a Golden Mike winner. He has so many Golden Mikes. He's stepping over Golden Mikes at his house on his way to pick up other Golden Mikes. Steve Gregory, everyone. I don't mean to emphasize the awards, but I'm just saying it's pretty cool that you are an award-winning journalist, sir. Welcome to the Mark Thompson Show, Steve.
Marco, always good to see you, pal.
I think you've been here before. Am I right, Steve?
Yeah, we were sort of highlighting my show Unsolved, which airs on Saturday nights.
That's right. You were here. That's right. You were here for a mystery. In fact, Courtney was very anxious to have you on because you are such an authority. I remember that now. This story that you have is out of Southern California, and it is bizarre, I think. Tell everyone what's happening with the Juvenile Hall there and how this entire situation has been turned on its side.
Well, Mark, it's funny because this situation is actually happening nationwide in some form or another. And that's this sort of reformist movement that is creeping into the juvenile detention system. And for people that may not understand, typically county probation departments are charged with maintaining discipline and maintaining enforcement of the juvenile halls within a specific county. In Los Angeles, one of the largest counties in the country, has one of the largest, incarcerated populations in adult jails and whatnot. But also it has a high number of juvenile incarcerated young people. And what we're finding out is because of lax policies on a local level, new prison reform and realignment plans on a state level, these kids now have become more empowered and they're getting more brazen. And these officers are getting the brunt of this violent outbursts and violent behavior inside these detention centers. Now, detention officers in the juvenile system do not carry sidearms. And that's by design for obvious reasons. But they typically have a baton maybe, or a capsicum spray, which is OC spray, and pepper spray. And so they have those tools, but because of reform movements now, they want to take that away from all of these probation officers. And here in Los Angeles County, that's a big problem because of prison realignment going on a state level. A lot of the criminals, very hardened criminals, are being released from state custody, and the county probation system has to absorb them. So now you've got 19, 20, up to 25-year-olds that have been in prison for a couple of years, blending in now with kids as young as 14 years old, and it's causing a big ruckus.
Wow. That's very interesting. So when you, just to unpack that, to use the overused term a little bit, when you say the lax rules, you mentioned lax. How does that manifest? What are some of those things that you're talking about in that general way?
And I can only speak for LA County in that particular statement because we're talking about the district attorney for Los Angeles County. He came into the office with a very, very reformist ideology. He wanted to redo the justice system. He wants to completely gut and eradicate the current system of enforcement and incarceration in favor of these care first movements. And this is the sort of hands-off approach, the hugs approach, as some people have called it, the hugs and, tickle and hugs approach, as opposed to the lock them in cages approach. So that was always his sort of agenda from the beginning. As such, when he got into office the day of inauguration, he sent out a list of directives to all of his new staff, his brand new staff of prosecutors, in which he said, we will not prosecute kids as adults, regardless of the crime. So the most heinous of all, murder, those kids are not being charged in adult court. And in California, even if you commit a murder as a kid, you're released at 25 years old anyway. So it doesn't really matter in California. But in Los Angeles County, kids are not even being punished for murder or for the heinous crimes as adults because of these directives. Also, there's in the body of the directives is a mandate that no young person that's in custody in Los Angeles County will ever be charged again with additional crimes while in the custody of the county. So when you've got photos like, let's look at some vandalism
I
here.
see. So when they do stuff in the system like that, what you're talking about, that picture you're holding up.
Hole in the
So
door.
when they do this in juvenile hall, you're saying there are no repercussions because they can't be brought up on additional charges,
including when they slice open the leg of an officer, or slice the jowls of an officer when they slice open. I mean, that was a very, very deep cut. When they do things like this, they're not punished. When they bring in shivs or they make shivs inside of the detention centers. I mean, this is like San Quentin stuff here.
Yeah.
And so when they do all of this stuff, there's no repercussions. There's no accountability for them in LA County. Now, I've not surveyed counties around the country, so I can't speak to them, but that's what I meant by lax policies.
Well, I mean, that's extraordinary. And you're saying essentially that population of juvenile offenders is being commingled now with those who are of an older age. So you get, if you will, more hardened. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the juveniles are pretty hardened already. I mean, they come from pretty tough backgrounds often. And if they're capable of producing that sort of mayhem, but anyway, you're saying that older population is now commingled and it could make for an even tougher situation.
Right. And the way it was explained to me, because I did a very, very lengthy interview with a source that reached out, and we sat and talked, and the way they described it was that at 14 years old, which is the average age they come into the juvenile justice system, at 14 years old, I'm already getting them. These are his words. I'm already getting them with 14 years of bad parenting, 14 years of exposure to gang culture, 14 years of possible poverty, and 14 years of bad education. So when I get them at 14 years old, they're already conditioned with this sort of bad lifestyle. And when things go wrong and things go south in the custody of the probation department, they blame the probation officers. Well, the probation officers are saying, well, listen, these programs that were designed to extract them from this gang culture and get them into more of a better lifestyle, a better life for themselves, have all been defunded by the county. So the county is sort of creating its own mess. But when we find out, when we dig a little deeper, the officers are saying, well, that the reason that they're sort of eradicating or gutting that system, it's in favor of this new care first approach, which is really hands off. So instead of putting them in these dormitory style detention centers, they would literally go back to their homes and back into the communities where they offended. As long as they met with a counselor every so often and went to a couple after school activities, then they're going to be fine. Wow.
You realize how these early intervention programs are critical. It just,
wow.
The and evolution of it.
Yeah. Let's not ignore parenting here in all of this.
Right. No, exactly. Right. But I do think that many of those programs that can exist on playgrounds, around community centers, they can be a lifeline to those who may not have parents who are particularly well connected. These after school programs, all the rest, I don't know. That's a bigger question, but I mean, it feels very relevant given some of what you're talking about. What is going to be done? So these are law enforcement officers that you showed us pictures of who've been, worked over at the hands of a juvenile population. Well, what's the cure right now for that? What are they going to do?
There's no cure right now because they're also down about 2,000 officers over the last few years. They used to be at a peak of 6,000 officers just about 4 or 5 years ago, and now they're down to 2,000 because the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County will not release a hiring freeze because, again, they're trying to just squeeze this whole program out, choke it out in favor of this new Care First model, which, by the way, has lineage to other nonprofits, which will stand to gain financially from this. And that's sort of the bigger picture here, is that this whole channeling of the money that's supposed to go to kids and the safety of the kids and the safety of the adults, and it's actually being channeled into nonprofits for profit.
If it doesn't make sense, it's usually about money. Steve, thanks so much for taking a few minutes and joining us today. Always love it when you're on the show.
Pleasure, pal.
Steve Gregory, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.